I listened to what you had to say, and my question is this. I am a teacher in Loudoun County, and we sort of touched on it when we were talking with the sheriffs, and that is the perception of law enforcement by the Hispanic community in our county. And I can tell you from being a teacher of students of that ethnicity, it is not a positive look. They feel that, and we were even at a candidate forum earlier in the spring where a lot of people came forward, and what they talked about was how they felt they were unfairly dealt in the justice system because they were a minority. And they felt that a person of no color with lots of money could find their way in and out of the system easier without any record than somebody who was a minority and didn't really know the system and didn't know or have resources. And so I just wanted to ask what you guys could say about that. I mean, what is it we can do to make it feel like, make people in the county feel like our justice is not dependent on the color of your skin?
Amen.
Thank you for the question. I've been a prosecutor now for 26 years. I started off in another jurisdiction in Florida, where I'm originally from, and then I was in Arlington for about 8 years, and I've been here for about 15 years. I can tell you that my experience has been across the board, that it may sound like a cliche, but it's true. Justice is blind. There's no disparity in terms of the way that my office handles cases. We provide services to victims, regardless of race, color, creed, nationality, it doesn't matter. Justice is blind. We serve every single member of the community in the exact same way. And it's interesting to me because I'll tell you, my experience has been, the question is interesting to me because my personal experience over the many years I've been prosecuting is that
for Hispanic. The question was to the supposed individuals who were causing harms, the Hispanic accused.
Well, I'm going to respond, and then if the moderation needs more time, I don't mind doing it, but I just wanted to touch upon that. So, as I indicated before, I've been doing this for 25 years, where I'm in a courtroom every day. That concern that you expressed is a legitimate concern. Don't let anybody say anything different to you. That's not true. Justice is blind. Prosecutors are not blind. Police officers are not blind. Judges are not blind. Okay? That's why we have an issue, because we have a lack of diversity in Loudoun County. We have a lack of diversity in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. Yes, they have Hispanic people in there. 3. How many African Americans? 0. Right? How many Asians? I think you may have 1 because it may fall into a mixed category. So that's what you're talking about, diversity. When you go to court and you don't see somebody who looks like you, you do wonder what kind of shaft you're getting. That's the reality of our court system. So what we need to do is we need to have diversity across the board. Across the board. In a sheriff's office, yes, they may be 7% African American, but you know the community is 42% minority. Where's mine with the 35? So yeah, we can talk about we check that box, but life in Loudoun County is more than checking a box. Let's be representative of our community, because everybody up here who's looking to serve or has been serving serves the people. If they're not serving the people, they don't need to be doing it. So let's also talk about the situation as far as within the court system. We're talking about here that you have a situation where somebody may not feel like they're being appropriately handled in the court system. It is very true. Finances is another way that disparity hurts people. Because if you do have somebody, and I'll tell you this, I am a privately retained attorney, and I have clients who will pay good dollars to hire me to do a good job, and I do get great outcomes because they can afford to hire me. I also do court-appointed cases, and I treat them with the same respect. But who you have as your lawyer does make a difference on the outcome, because that's also how you're perceived. So all your concerns are legitimate.
Look, everybody, and every single person, the concern is legitimate. I'm not here to suggest that it's not, but I can assure you that every single person in Loudoun County who is charged with a crime is treated the same way. I also practice every single day and have been in court, in criminal court, as a prosecutor. Every single day. I oversee the other 18 prosecutors in the office. And there is no difference in the treatment of how cases are dealt with. Cases are dealt with on individual basis, on the strength of the case, on what is justice demand in each and every case. And I can promise you and assure you that there is never a question of, is this person black? Is this person white? Is this person Hispanic? That's just not a consideration. It simply is not, it never has been, and it never will be.
but just listening, there is definitely a difference between equity and equality. So you're saying that everyone is treated equally, not you, but the system. So how can your office be more transparent so the citizens of Loudoun know that the charges or what have you that's being done in the offices that you all are elected to is being distributed equitably and equally among all citizens?
All right, this is the issue that I find within that office. For starters, there is no transparency. We don't know what goes on in that office. I can tell you what goes on in that office relative to what I see and what other attorneys or other people in our community see. But as far as sitting there and saying categorically this is the situation, no, because there's no transparency. There's no data. That is one of the things that we're going to change in January. Is we're going to have data. We're going to start showing about how this is, because I think that's how we educate ourselves. For clarification to my response earlier, please understand this. I am not suggesting that the different agencies are prejudiced or outrightly intentionally doing that, but there's a thing called implicit bias. Right? Implicit bias means that maybe I just don't see things the same way, or I don't perceive somebody the same way. That's where it comes in, the differences in how we handle people. So for clarification, let's just put that out there. That's not the allegation I'm making. I'm just saying that people are not taking time to figure out is how these cases are being handled. Because if you do statistics and you do data, then you can say you're 2%, you're 20%, you're 50%, then you're like, wow, I got to sit back and figure out what our policies are. And that's what we don't have in this office, is transparency. Because we can't give you an answer as to what is equity and what is equality in that office, other than saying, I think it's right, which I say to you, I don't think it's right.
Also, in terms of the implicit bias, I agree with you that that can certainly be an issue. And so what we've done in my office is we've actually sent prosecutors, and are continuing to send prosecutors, along with other court personnel, judges, court services people, probation officers, to implicit bias training. And actually, one of the things that we learned, just a very minor thing, but it really had an impact, is that if you tell people, hey, I'm sending you to implicit bias training, they get their back up a little bit, because the connotation is that you're biased, so you got to go to this, and that's not the truth. People, this is not something that's conscious. It can happen to the people with the best of intentions. So what people prefer to call it now is not implicit bias, but implicit associations. And so we're very cognizant of that, and we're taking, and have taken, long before this election process came to be, taking steps to ensure that that isn't filtering its way into our decisions.
When somebody's been in office or in any position too long, they become stale, they become staid. Given the opportunity on January 2nd, we will start and we will make some significant changes.